does this work?
Okay, so basically we're live right now. There's nobody really watching yet. Oh, one person's joined us. Okay. Hi guys, Periscopers. We're gonna wait for more people to join. It's basically like a live hosted stream immediately. Okay, a bunch of people in here. Guess who's with me? Adrienne Arsenault. You guys, such a huge honor really for me to even be talking to you because you're amazing. So Adrienne presented at Junior J School this morning. Here, you sit and I'll come close to you.
Okay,
yeah,
cool. Because I'm old. Let me sit.
You're not old, please. So Adrienne presented this morning at Junior J School, and you know, we didn't have a chance to ask her questions. Those of you guys joining us, she gave an amazing presentation, talked about a lot of her experience being out there. People saying always watch you on CBC. Good, we like that. We do like that. Oh, you know what? I'm going to take this off. Okay. So it was great. Adrienne, I mean, I really walked away with the fact that you are so incredibly humble. I can't even believe it. You've been in so many crazy, risky situations, and you kind of just walk away like, I feel good about humanity still. So it's really, yeah, it's okay. It's really amazing. So can you tell us more about that? What's the toughest situation you've ever been in that's challenged you the most?
Yeah, I think the hardest, it's like a type of situation, which is when you go somewhere bad.
Yeah.
And you know, like it's like an earthquake or tsunami or something, and you meet all these people, and they let you into into their homes, and you get connected with them, but then you have to go, and it's kind of heartbreaking because you just, you start to play with the little kids and you just get to a sense where they feel comfortable telling you their stories and you feel comfortable hearing them, but then you just leave.
Right.
And it's, I think it's always harder for us to leave a place than it is to go there. It's like
that's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna actually. Look, people saying you're very brave. Your heart shows in your stories.
That's very nice.
Yes, and I completely. A lot of people see that. I'm going to flip the camera this way so it's a better shot. But, when you say you have to leave, like as a journalist, I mean, our job is maintaining sources and contacts. Do you keep in touch with people?
I do sometimes. I mean, not always. I always sort of think, wow, I'm going to stay totally in touch with this person. And then it gets hard, and sometimes you lose touch with people. But I've tried over the years. There are a couple of kids in particular that a group of us, quietly will try to, try to make sure they go through school. Sometimes people will want to, this isn't me who's initiated this, but I've been a part of it where some people who are a lot more organized than I am have said, we're not here as activists, but there was a great viewer reaction to this little guy. Is there anything anybody can do to help make sure he goes to school? And people sort of leap in, and there's like a whole fraternity, sorority, whatever you want to call it, of journalists sometimes who try to, stay connected.
Is it ever tough to leave the stories, after you go home? Like, how do you cope with that?
It's wicked. Not because they're like especially scary or the situation's especially bad. It's just that when you're on a story, it doesn't matter what it is, and you're away from your home base, you are living that story. Every moment is about that story. Even the shower, you're having a shower in the morning, you're thinking about that story. And so at the end of it, to get on a plane and just leave, you can't shed the skin of that story very well. So I find it really hard to leave sometimes. And then after, I'm constantly, obsessively reading about the place I've just left behind. Because,
interesting.
I'm sort of imagining myself there.
Right.
We're all a bit twisted.
Lots of people say it must be hard to clear it from your mind. It makes you a better person. And somebody else commented that they see a lot of heart in your stories. And I think as young journalists, a lot of us are told like a key part of building your brand or whatever is finding your voice. And I feel like a lot of people get that sense of empathy from your stories. Like, do you feel like you have a voice in your story?
It's such a funny question because I sort of was kind of raised in an era of journalism which is not about putting yourself in the story. It's about, like being one of those geckos that sort of like gets like sucked into the wall and you can't really tell that the gecko is there.
Yeah.
You just sort of, you're attached to the story and you feel it and you're observing it, but you're not really intruding yourself into it. You hope you're not anyway. So that's sort of, for me, the notion of finding a voice was as if to say, holy Dinah, have a look at this. You know, like you wouldn't believe what's happening over here. The way you'd explain it to a friend. You know, somebody said to me once, if you can't tell your story the way you would if you were picking up the phone and calling a friend and saying, you wouldn't believe what's going on over here, then you're not really telling it properly. So, you know, try to keep that in mind. Your authentic voice with friends should be your authentic voice with the story.
Right, that makes sense. So someone asked, what was the scariest experience you've had while covering a story abroad? I know you mentioned one this morning.
Yeah, we were talking about Zimbabwe this morning. I love it, but it was kind of a tricky place for us because we were the only accredited Western broadcasters there in 2008 for the election, and we weren't really wanted there. And we were arrested like many days in a row. It was very weird. But one day, I think it was probably my fault, we made a mistake. Our driver took us into a cemetery, which we wanted him to do, but we, instead of going to the part of the cemetery where the opposition forces were buried, if you will, it was the one where the ruling party was buried. And it sounds like a small difference, but it's a big difference, because when we went into the one with the ruling party, there were a whole bunch of guys there, machetes, angry. They seemed kind of high to me, and they grabbed us. They took the keys out of the car. They separated us. They'd been digging graves. They were like, "This is where you're gonna go," and it went south for a while there. And a very kind man, curiously from the ruling party, was there for a funeral and happened to see this and intervened magnificently and convinced them that he was going to take us to jail and really get us in trouble if only they would be so gracious as to hand us over to his custody away from the machete men and put us all together as a team. And so he convinced them that this was the right thing to do, and they did it, and then he just handed us our car keys and said, "You drive."
Right, so what's going through your head in that moment, Like, do you ever think, like, was it worth it to come out here for this story?
Oh, in that moment you think, it's not worth it. But I was so grateful to be with my friends, my teammates who, Aaron and Richard, the cameraman and producer at the time, I love them. They're still my really dear friends. And every now and then we'd sort of catch a glimpse of the other one, as if we couldn't really talk, but as if to say, I got you, don't I'm here, you're here, we'll be okay. And it was super comforting to have them there. And then after we might have had wine. Like a lot,
right?
Maybe.
Okay, all right. So wine helps with the coping.
Yeah.
So someone else asked now about your coverage following the tsunami in Asia.
Yep.
Some incredible work out there. What was that experience like for you?
Oh, the tsunami was brutal. It was over a decade ago. It was. We were in Sri Lanka. A couple things stand out. I was shocked at how lonely the men were. I was astonished because a lot of the men were fishermen, so they were out at sea. And weirdly, if you're out at sea in the middle of a tsunami, depending on where you are, you're okay, because the waves sort of, you roll with it. And then it comes like freight train crashing into the land. And so when it did that, it was killing the kids and it was killing the wives. And so the fishermen come back from sea, and we would see them sort of walking the beaches, like looking for their families.
It's so sad.
And they'd find like scraps of clothing, and they'd be comparing, I think our house was here, and this looks like our furniture, but where's my wife? And the men were like heartbreaking. They would sit on the beach and look at the sea as if they were waiting for it to give them back their families, and of course it never did. So that was, wicked. It was wicked.
Do you cry on the job ever? Does that ever happen?
Listen, I cry at Bell commercials sometimes. I cry at I'm terrible for even like pet videos on YouTube. I am a terrible leaky faucet. Yeah, no, wicked. I cry all the time.
Wow, okay.
It's not very professional, but I try to keep it together. But yeah, I'm a big suck.
Well, that's interesting because I guess you always go to you have such tough assignments, but to hear that, someone's like, did you cry at the new Star Wars movie?
I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I should cry at not seeing it.
She hasn't seen it yet.
Don't spoil it.
So now that you're, when you're home,
yeah.
Seeing what you've seen on the road, what's your perspective of life in Canada?
We're so lucky. Are you kidding? We're so lucky to be where we are. Not that we don't have problems.
Yeah.
I think we could all be a little nicer to each other than we are sometimes. But I think especially coming to Vancouver, I miss the city so much. I love it.
So, for those of you who don't know, Adrienne started her career out here in Vancouver.
Yeah, I started reporting out here in Vancouver. I was here for like 7 years. I still kind of consider it my heart's home.
Yeah.
I wasn't born in the city.
I have to say, like, we have a lady. Okay, I'm going to flip the camera. So there's a lady upstairs in accounting. She has been 40 years or something, and she still goes, I remember the day that Adrienne Arsenault was here. And then when we all think that we're like, we're never going to make it, they're like, just remember Adrienne Arsenault started right here. I remember I was processing her paycheck.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Yeah, you're an inspiration to us.
Well, it's funny. I'm surprised I didn't get fired when I was here, because one of the things I did is I went out, like pre-VJ land, I went out with, I don't know how they let me do this, with like a small camera, and I said, I'm going to spend a couple nights with homeless kids on the street. And they said, oh, okay. And so, like, I slept in the squats with these kids. I don't know what the heck was I thinking, but they were great. The squats were totally legal, totally terrible. And at one point, Genius Girl here got the idea to, why don't I loan these kids the camera? Let them, without my presence, let it be pure. Wow. I never saw it again. Wow. So I had to come back and say, about that doc I was doing, there's a camera missing. So I learned some hard lessons here. The piece ended up working out really well. The kids were great. We had enough footage, but I learned some trust lessons a little bit here.
Wow, that's amazing. That's very cool, though.
Yeah.
Okay, just so you guys know, we're also joined in the room by two other journalists. This is Brenna Rose. I'm going to point. There's Brenna. This is Camille. Camille is joining us from Ottawa.
That's right.
Yeah, Brenna
Adrienne
comes
and
to
I
us
worked
from
on
Alberta.
one
We
story
worked on
a little bit, which was a kind of a questionable story.
Yeah, a very sketchy story.
Yeah, about...
Go ahead, you say it.
No, I don't think I want to... Improperly named, series of rapids. Is that the best way to put it? Okay.
The hearts are going crazy, just so you guys know.
Well, it's for Camille.
Should I show you guys? Like, the hearts are going wild.
Probably for
Yeah.
Adrienne. Probably for Adrienne.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so I just wanted to introduce myself to Adrienne in person.
There we go.
And now you're getting on Periscope.
Oh, you
Nice
guys
to
are
finally
witnessing
meet
a
you.
moment right here.
Yes, because we've emailed back
It's
and
true.
forth, but never met.
No, it's true.
But nice to finally meet you.
And we haven't finished our story.
No, we haven't.
This is a very I don't even know how to explain this, guys, but there are...
I'm so glad you're
Like,
taking
this
this
is
away,
so
because I feel uncomfortable
I feel very
explaining this
uncomfortable.
story. Okay.
This is like makeup room hangout. This is what we should have called this Periscope.
There are places in this country, like rivers and rocks and rapids, that have a name that begin with the word N.
And
And we're not helping you with what it is.
yeah,
Interesting.
it's yes.
And yet,
6 letters.
yeah,
So,
there are like
in case you didn't
21
get
of them in this country. And, some of them have an interesting background.
There's actually 21 in Quebec.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so in one province, and then more than that across the country.
And a lot of them, there are communities that defend the use of the name quite vociferously.
For sure.
And others where people don't even realize that they're named these things. We're not talking like massive St. Lawrence River scale rivers.
Right.
Just
smaller
a
ones.
little rock or the river. Anyway, so we've been trying to figure out a way. You did one. He did a great story on it, but we've been trying to figure out a way to do it in a broader sense because it's just weird.
Yeah. And after our story, they started backtracking on some of the names and started opening up petitions, and so I feel like we made a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, there you go.
That's always a good feeling.
Making an impact. Okay, I'm going to ask Adrienne one last question. Did you always set out to become a foreign correspondent? Was that the plan?
No, I mean, I just wanted to tell stories, period, really anywhere. I think the first time, and then there was an offer to work in Washington, which was amazing. And then I was asked to move to Jerusalem. And I was terrified, and I might have cried for some 6,000 miles on my way to the posting.
I can't believe this. Hearing that Adrienne Arsenault cries, you guys.
Makes me feel so much better.
Yeah, I don't
Am I that hard?
No, it's. I guess
I definitely feel the heart in your stories, but everyone just feels from the even comments here that you're courageous and so
that's
brave,
kind.
and then to hear that you cry.
One word I would describe her as: you appear invincible.
Oh, well, that's
so just to hear that, you tear up every once in a while.
Well, yeah, but I mean, to go to Jerusalem, it's not what I thought I'd end up doing, but then it was like, oh my God, how could I not think about working here? And then I fell hard for it. And then I cried for 6,000 miles when I had to leave the posting, so it all works out in the end,
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And thank you to everybody that joined us today. I'm going to turn this